Friday night. I'm only doing a little bit in the shed tonight, but I'm pretty much ready to get back on the Riley. But my carburetors for the Honda arrived. They look like they'd work. They're really light, like ridiculously light. There's a few small differences between these and the ones on the bike. The main one being there's no adjustment here, whereas the others have a screw, so you can even out the carb pull. The choke mechanism is a bit different, but I actually like this one better. It's far more positive. I haven't opened these up to have a look inside them, but it does say Keihin in Japan on it. I'm not sure they really are, but I've got them there now, and if I need to, I can swap those over. So the carbs on there were working well, but then today when I came out and tried to start the bike, it spluttered a bit and then wouldn't fire. And I've checked the spark and everything, and I spent a while trying to get it to start and ended up with an explosion in one of the exhaust pipes. So I think just too much fuel was going through. So I think it was flooded. I've pulled the plugs out and they were wet. So I've kind of left it for now. I'm just worried there's fuel pooling in the exhaust. So I've left it with the plugs out, and I'll leave it to sort of dry out, let all the fuel evaporate out. So maybe tomorrow I'll give it another try. I did try blowing it out a little bit, but that didn't seem to help. But yeah, I think I just need to get used to how you start this one and when you need to use the choke and when not to, and that kind of thing. But it should just be choke on while it's cold, turn it on, turn the fuel on, kick it over. It should fire, and you leave it running for 30 to 60 seconds, the manual said, and slowly reduce the choke until it runs. But yeah, shame, because I was going to go for a ride around the garden. But back on the Riley. So I had this gauge. I ended up with two because I've got the speedo and the tachometer. And it's the tachometer I really want because it's a nice big gauge and it's nice and plain. It kind of matches the vintage ones, the pre-war ones. I think this is out of a Jaguar, but a later one. But it's the correct ratio and it's the correct direction, which is what I need. So I could always make a new face for this, but I think this one's fine. So I would like to fit that gauge in place of that little one. I'm not sure I've quite got enough room there, so I might have to make a third instrument panel, which is just a piece of flat aluminium, because I think there's not quite enough room there, but I'll see. Because this has got these sort of ears, which are what's used to mount it, and I think they're going to stick out, but we'll see. But the problem with it was it didn't rotate. So the needle part rotated because that's a separate mechanism. The way it works is kind of through, I guess it's magnetic drag. So the inner piece turns, which is what the cable turns, and that kind of induces the outer one to turn, but there's no direct connection between them, because there can't be, obviously. Otherwise your needle would just spin all the way around. So that's how they do that. And it was completely jammed up, like it wouldn't rotate at all. So I ended up leaving it sitting like this with some of the coil soaking around it, and that did free it up. It's nice and free now. I actually have the correct cable for it because this gauge has a different style connector on the back of the gauge than the one that's in the car, which is a bigger one. So I have the correct drive for it, and I've tested it on the drill and it does work. So just realized 2 to 1. What does my drill do? So the drill does 2000 RPM, and that was showing 4000 on the meter. So is that correct? I think so. I've completely forgotten which way around the ratios work. but because this is driven off the camshaft, and the camshaft is going half the crankshaft speed, so yes, I think that's correct. Yeah, makes sense. So that gauge should work. And I want to do a little test of these guards. That's got surface rust on it. Ooh, very grimy. I want to see if I can do the little kick up on the ends of the guards by actually building it into the panels. So instead of just having this straight edge, I want to see what happens if I try to kick that round. I'm not sure how well that's going to work, but I can do a little test piece on some scrap steel first and sort that out. Yeah, I might try the bike again. But yeah, it wasn't just a little pop. It was an explosion. It really went bang. So I'm a little bit worried about that. But yeah, I think it's just me getting the hang of how you actually get the thing to fire up properly every time. I think that's really all for tonight. I might take that other gauge out and just see where this one will fit behind there, if there is room. Otherwise, yeah, it's pretty easy to make another instrument panel, I think. Is there already one? There's not one up on my wall of multiple attempts yet. It may actually be sitting over there somewhere in my little metal pile. I'm sure I've got another one somewhere. Oh yeah, there it is. So that one I made the opening way too big. So yeah, I'll have another attempt. Let's put that one up on the wall though. Very strange. I did get the bike running. I sort of roll started it in second gear, and that got the engine to kick over, and I got it to run. And I was just able to get it running again by choke off but throttle open, and it fired right up, but it won't idle. So it almost indicates that the pilot jets are blocked again, which is interesting, which probably means taking the carbs off again to have a look. I have got a fuel filter on it, so I can't see that it would be stuff getting into the fuel, into the carbs. And that's it's one of those sort of sintered filters. So, you know, that should stop most things, but those carb jets are very small. I did take the rocker cover off again just to check the valve timing. I also checked the exhaust, and one of the exhaust nuts was a bit loose, so that might be why it backfired. Maybe it was sucking air in through there when I was trying to start it. So maybe I do need to put those new carbs on and see. Just squeeze past. See if they do make a difference. But yeah, interesting. I can get it to fire now if I open the throttle when I kick it over, but it just won't idle. It just dies. So, very strange. I did start up the Valicet, and that started first pull, and that hasn't run for weeks. And that started straight up. So that's good. It's really interesting comparing the two bikes. So this has always been my impression of the Valicet, that at slow speed it feels really heavy. I think it's just all the weight on the front there with the big giant guard, you know, big heavy wheel, big heavy tire. It just always feels to me like almost like the steering wants to flop over. Maybe I need to adjust the tension on here or something, but it just feels ponderous compared to this. This feels quite nice and light. So I did get a few laps around the garden. That was fine. Once it's running, everything was going okay, but as soon as you went to try to idle it, it would die. So yeah, and it was making a strange, almost like a rattly noise. So hopefully my backfire hasn't blown apart something inside the exhaust. But the rattle was more up this end. I think maybe that was before. I think that was when the exhaust nut was loose. So I suspect it was just an exhaust leak right at the manifold there, and it was making that sort of funny tinny noise. But just when you think you've got it all right, it decides not to work again. So, I don't know. Carbs off again, do you think? Let's see, it will. And then it just dies if you don't hold the throttle open. So, I don't know, indicates those pilot jets to me, I would say. But I've got pretty good at putting the carbs on and off now, so maybe I will just chuck these on, see what it does. I'm going to open these up at some point and have a look inside and just see what the innards of them look like. I'm pretty sure they'll be just the same as those replacement kits I got. Yeah. So I have the fuel tank off again and the side covers off again, but I think I'll take the carbs off tomorrow. I need to take them off to see what's going on anyway, so I think it's worth trying the new ones. I have opened them up, had a look, they're all nice and clean. I've set the jets to something sensible. Starting position, I need to set the that throttle screw to something that looks sort of sensible. I'm not sure what that setting should be, it doesn't actually say, but obviously you screw that in and the slide opens up a little bit to give it that idle setting, idle air. The Valasec gives you a measurement for that, so I just opened it up, so it's some, see the light through it, yeah. Yeah, and I'll give these a try. So these do have the screw-in pilot jets. They should be the correct size. The main jet may not be the right size, that might need changing, but I want it to be able to start, that's the main thing. So I think that's going to be a weekend job. I've had enough for this week. I think I'll leave it there.